Hi there, welcome to Hey Sound Guy, the podcast where I'll be peeking behind the curtains of the wonderful world of music. Each week I'll be speaking to sound engineers, music industry professionals, or musicians, and we'll get to know them a little bit better, share some fun stories from the road. Now my next guest is a good friend of mine. I've known her for a very long time, about 12 years since I started working at Ronnie Scott's. She has performed there very many times. We've worked together with a function band called the Dark Blues. She is a vocal coach for Britain's Got Talent and X Factor, and she has a brand new app that's coming out today. So I will be linking in the description to that. Very fantastic, lovely chat. It was great to catch up with her. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend Annabel Williams.
Thank you. How are we?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, thank you for agreeing to doing this. It's I was so super excited when you agreed. I've been thinking about asking you for a while, but I'm always like, I'm this little guy. I don't know if I'm worthy.
Tians,
but
how long do we go back? We go very
12
far
years?
back. For you, darling, anything.
Oh, thank
you. Of course,
you.
I'm always
You're
up for
so
a chat.
kind.
I've got a cuppa. I'm up for it.
Ready to go. Fantastic.
Yes, babe.
Damn it, I forgot my beer, but I'll get that later. So, what have you been up to? What have you been? How have you been?
Well,
you're not in London anymore, are you?
No, I am back in London.
You're back
I
in
moved
London.
back because
Right.
I missed it and I missed hanging out and I didn't like having to get the train home at 4 a.m. when I left Ronnie. So,
Yeah.
well, there was no train, so that's a very expensive cab.
Yeah.
No, we moved back last August. It's so nice to be back in London. Just, when we're not in lockdown. I mean, it's nice to be in London in lockdown as well because...
Yeah. We've been so fortunate with the weather. My God.
So
Can
nice.
you imagine?
Oh my gosh.
It's so lovely outside.
It's been really nice.
Yeah,
But no, sorry, go on.
Please go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, no, you've caught me in such an amazing week. I've got an app coming out on Monday.
Please tell us.
Yeah, so this is an idea. I mean, I've had this idea for about 5 years now, and I feel like I've been a bit of a broken record talking about it, but I've actually finally done it. So last year, I started actually going, right, because I kind of had all these ideas, and I was like, right, if I don't do it now, I never will, and started putting all these ideas together. And the whole idea is that I wanted to make a warm-up app for singers because there isn't really anything like that out there.
Yeah.
And it felt like such a simple idea, but I couldn't really find anything that really worked for me. And I had, from my coaching, I had loads of exercises that I was using anyway. And I just thought, how boring. I just sit here and play them on the piano. Wouldn't it be great to have really cool, Bruno Mars-esque backing tracks to them and get fully produced backing tracks to these exercises? And that's what I did. And it's all been done and it's out on Monday. So this week is just all the kind of final tweaks and just the preparation for the big launch. So it's really
that's
cool.
so exciting.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. What's it called? Or can you not say?
It's called The Vocal Coach. I mean, that's what I go under, Annabel Williams, The Vocal Coach. So it's just The Vocal Coach, or The Vocal Coach app, I guess.
Amazing.
But yeah, if you type in The Vocal Coach, you'll find it. And so
that's awesome. Well, I'll put a link in the description.
That would be awesome.
to
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so it's it's funny, it's usually the most simple things are the things that nobody's ever thought about.
Totally.
Nobody's ever done.
Well, everyone I've mentioned this to, and I work with a lot of singers and I coach a lot of artists, and I've got to say, everyone I've spoken to, just like you just now, wow, what an amazing idea. Everyone's had such a great reaction to it, and it really fills me with confidence because it's honestly something that I've made. It's probably the only thing I've ever truly done where I'm like, I know this is brilliant. I know this is going to be amazing and it's going to work for people. I think because I'm a singer, and so I've tried to make something that I would want as a singer, something that I can put on backstage before my gig, or whether or before my session or before my rehearsal in the car on the way. You just stick it on through the speakers or whatever and just sing along to it, and you've got me kind of guiding you throughout, going, remember this, and release the tension and push your placement forward and keep your shoulders down and things like that. So you're kind of getting coached by me and guided as you go.
It's like a yoga app for singers.
Exactly. That's actually where
brilliant.
the idea came from. I basically thought, It's like a personal training app, but for singers.
Wow.
So yeah, exactly that.
That's fantastic. I'm so excited. I've got goosebumps. It's so good. That's really
Thank you,
good.
baby. Thank you.
Wow,
Yeah.
fantastic. How I normally start is if you can introduce yourself, tell us what it is that you do and how you came to do what it is that you do.
Sure. So my name is Annabel Williams, and I am a singer and vocal coach. And well, that's it, isn't it? That's all I do. Yeah, I sing and I coach people.
It's not all you do. It's a big thing. You're very busy. You're so distinguished, and again, one of the reasons why I was like, I'm not worthy.
You are so worthy. Don't be silly. You're one of my oldest friends. Of course, I'm up for any time. Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
So yes, you're a singer and a vocal coach. We met each other at Ronnie Scott's about 12 years ago.
I mean, I don't even remember meeting you. That's probably how much I drunk at the time. But that's not uncommon, is it, at Ronnie's? Let's be honest. Yeah, it's a long, long time ago. Exactly. I feel like I've known you forever.
Yeah, that's great, isn't it? Friends that Tim Bray as well. Yeah. He's always like, I can't remember meeting you because it just feels like we've known each other forever.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's when there's that chemistry, you can meet somebody for the first time and it's there. And then there's other times people, you don't necessarily dislike them or whatever, but it's just like forming a relationship it's kind of work.
But I think you have that lovely quality of just making whoever you're with just feel comfortable. Like you're like the least judgmental person in the world. You treat everybody the same, and I think when you kind of have that output, it's just you're so warm, so everyone just relaxes around you. And I think that having that quality makes people just feel like they've known you forever. And like you're in, okay, and probably within the first 2 minutes we met, it was the same as it is now.
Yeah. Just with more vodka. Instant friendship. Yeah. Well, I was probably on the beer and the whiskey back then, but yeah.
Not anymore, no?
No, it's been 2.5 years now that I haven't been drinking.
Really?
Yeah, right.
And why is that? Was that just like a health choice, or?
Well, you know how it is, Annie. At Ronnie's, and not just at Ronnie's, but in the industry, it's it's a common thing. It's almost encouraged, to have as much of a good time as you can. And not that I'm against having a good time. I've always been up for it, but since I was working a lot, and it was just becoming a bit of a habit. It wasn't to the point where it became a problem. It's not like I had to get up in the morning and have a beer or something, but I just felt that it's becoming a habit. And it was never a thing of as soon as I have a beer now I have to have 10, but it's just I just wanted to take a break, and originally it was just supposed to be for a weekend, and then I was like, I did a weekend, maybe I'll do a week, and then I got to a week, I'm like, well, maybe I can do a month, and then it kind of just. It just went that way. You
do feel so good doing that sort of thing. I did 10 weeks last year. I came back from a pretty debaucherous holiday and was like, I got to give my body a rest. And I said, right, I'm going to do 10 weeks, and I did it, and I've never felt better. And of course, isn't it weird? I've never felt better, and of course, I've not done that since. Yeah. I do think you're right though, and I think it's. When you work at somewhere where, like you work, like Ronnie Scott, you're there every night, it's so hard. And I think, being a musician, it is such a debaucherous environment. And actually...
But it's a social thing.
It's a social thing. And, you can do really well in the business by being out and socialising. And that's why it's really hard to get a balance. Because if you're not around and you're not staying out late, you might not meet that person who's going to call you for that gig next week. So it's a funny one, really. But I certainly don't think people should feel pressure in any way. It's certainly not a way in drinking.
No, it's not. I mean, the got to say the sort of the first month or so, it was I wouldn't go to the Dog and Duck with the boys.
Yeah.
Because it was just. If you're trying to stay away from it, going to a pub is the last thing that you want to do.
So hard.
But I've since I've tailored my life around it, there's nowadays, we're so fortunate with there being such a variety of non-alcoholic beers out, because I like drinking beer, I love it, right? But I mean, I just made a conscious decision that I'm not going to drink alcohol. Doesn't mean I stopped liking beer. And I found quite a variety of nice beers, so now I can go stand at the pub with the boys and drink a beer, especially like on a day like today. I've been for 2 weeks out in my back garden enjoying the hot weather. I'm building a sauna for myself. Yeah, so
that's the last thing I want to be in right now. It's so hot.
Yeah, but
that's amazing though.
Good bit of sweat is always a good thing.
Yeah, true.
Because I'm super into upcycling and recycling stuff. So I built myself like a home gym type thing.
Cool.
Out of some recycled pallets, an old double bed, and so unfortunately I hurt my hand about 2 weeks ago. I went to go pick up some wood, and as I was shoving it into the back of my car, it got stuck, and I wasn't wearing gloves, and this finger of mine, it tore it open almost onto the bone. No. I'll stop talking about it then. And
have you got any pictures?
I do actually.
Love stuff
and
like
I've got. I pulled out a splinter that's about this long on the first day, and then because I've got some powder penicillin, which is so good, and hydrogen peroxide. Wow. So I was cleaning it, and still, I could press around it, and it felt like there was still something in there. And on the second day, I just squeezed it a little bit, and I saw this little tip appear. I was like, okay, hold on, I'm gonna have to go dig around in there. I got the tweezers out, and I pulled out another one. It was about a centimeter long, but it was straight in, and I think it went in and it lodged up against the finger bone, because as soon as I pulled it out, I got like needles and pins all over my hand, like a nerve or something was blocked, and now finally the blood was able to flow again. And then since then it's been a bit of a. I mean, I'm still working, I'm still using my hands, but to do exercise and stuff was a bit hard. So I took a break from the. It's right there.
Oh God.
Yeah, so on the fold, it's such an annoying place. So yeah, I thought, well, I'd still try and keep myself busy in other ways, and I had this idea of building a sauna, and as it goes with all creation, like with your app, there are 3 stages of creation. There's the thought, then the word, then the deed. If you think about something enough, you're going to start talking about it, and if you start talking about it enough, you're going to start doing it. It's just a natural progression.
Absolutely.
So I was thinking about it for a bit, sort of like maybe 2 days. I'd be like, oh, that'd be nice. And then a friend of ours he sent me a picture of this sauna. He's like, oh, do you think you can, because I've built a treehouse for my daughter in the backyard, and I've got all sorts of stuff that I've built. And he's like, oh, do you think you can build us a sauna in our backyard? And I'm like, God damn, this must be fate, right? Because I've been thinking about it for a couple of days. Now somebody else is asking me to build them one.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, let me see what I can do. And I started drawing up plans and and as it works, in the situation that we're in, none of us are earning money. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to have to not do what I want to do. So I've been, gathering pallets. As I say, I'm harvesting wood.
Where are you getting it from? Are you like going out late at night with like a hood over you and just like going into people's gardens and stealing wood? You are.
No, I do it during the day.
Oh, right.
Yeah. No,
that's, I mean,
if I see somebody's got pallets in their yard, I'll walk up to their front door and knock and say, listen, are you happy for me to take these? Because a lot of the times they get stuff delivered and then they don't know what to do with the pallets.
Yeah.
And rather than me just going and taking things, which is, I don't think that they would have minded anyway, but still, I think the courtesy is just to go and say, listen, I've got a project that I'm doing. Do you mind if I take this? And 11 times out of 10, they're happy for me to take it. So it's never been a problem.
That's so great. It's so great to hear that people are kind of doing stuff in lockdown. Because I think those first couple of weeks we were all a bit like, well, how long's this going to go on
on
for? Because this is pretty bad. And then you kind of get to a point where you're like, this isn't just a couple of weeks, you know. What am I going to do? So yeah, for me, that really made me get the app finished and get it out. And for you, you're making a sauna. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well done. When's it going to be finished?
Well, I've got the floors done, and the structure is built. I've got all the inside cladding done, which for me was the more important bit. Yeah. Because I did a load of research about whether or not you can reuse pallet wood, whether it's been treated with chemicals or not. And, there's a whole website dedicated to this, where, they've got on the side of the pallet, there's markings, and they tell you how the wood's been treated. Mm-hmm. And because they churn these things out in the millions, right, they're not going to spend money and time, because they know these things are, the majority of the time, they're single use. Yeah. Okay. So they'll chop a tree up, make planks, and I mean the vast majority of them, they're rough cut, so there's still like splinters and stuff. There's no kind of work that's gone into them. So they're just heat treated, and that's basically it. So once I've got it in place, I've got a nice, they call it a flap disc for the grinder, and it's like basically sandpaper that's like, and with that I just smooth it all out. So you're doing all that hard work your end. You're doing it all. Yeah. Well but done. I mean, the reason why I wanted to make sure that I can use these things is because obviously once I introduce heat and I'm sat in an enclosure, I don't want to be breathing toxic stuff. No. The whole point of having a sauna is to get healthy and get all the toxins out. But yeah, so the inside cladding's done. The roof's done, so the whole structure's done. Our housemate brought me 2 empty propane tanks, which I've taken the valves off, and I've forced the propane out by filling it up with water a few times, because propane's heavier than air. You can't blow it out with like a compressor or something, because it will just never get. So the way you do it is fill it up with water, and then the water pushes all the propane out. Oh, okay. So yeah, I've been sort of working.
So clever, Tian. Well done.
Well, I wish I could say that it's all me, but YouTube has helped me a lot. There's people out there that do these things.
YouTube is the one. I've been doing loads of recording in lockdown. This is another thing something that I've always been like, I've got to get better at it, because I can do it. I saw that thing
you did with Tor. It's fantastic.
Oh, thank you. There's been loads of those, I've had different. It's been so nice. Lots of different people are just getting off their bums and being creative and raising so much money for different charities. It's been so nice to be a part of, and it's been good for me, because it's we're all really missing singing. When you're a singer, you have to do it. It's like something that's in you. Yeah. And to be asked to be a part of these videos, from Tor, and Hayley Sanderson has done this wonderful project with Bead Charity, which is a charity for survivors of domestic abuse, and took this song by Britney Spears, Stronger. So when I first heard the idea, I'm like, okay. And then actually, if you slow it down, listen to the lyrics, they're amazing. Right. And so she was like, so we all, a bunch of us sort of session singers and vocal coaches, had a different survivor and taught them how to sing their few lines in this song. And they just recorded them on their phones, because they had no means to record in any other way. And Hayley's other half, Barnaby Dickinson, who's an amazing trombone player, Barnaby.
Fantastic, yeah.
He is polished it and made it all amazing, and now it's out and it's raising money. They're aiming for £10,000 for this charity, and that was just from doing this sort of thing at home and recording backing vocals for these songs. And it's been great. And anytime I've been kind of like, oh, how do I do this, or I've just gone onto YouTube, and it's just brilliant. Anything like that you need to know, you just go on for. So I definitely feel like I've learned so much in these last 2 months at home, and learning just extra little bits about Logic and how to record and how to make videos and things like that. And bought this fancy new mic, because
the Aston Stealth, they're fantastic.
You know what? They are great, but this is our 3rd one in 3 weeks. Annoyingly. Ooh. Yeah. Ooh. the first one, the little settings at the bottom completely rubbed off, because there's 4 settings. I really, really like the sound of the Aston Stealth. I really like the sound that I get, and I realised, having got this one, how much better it was than the old one I was using. But there's these little settings, V1, V2. So V1 is for a male vocal. I mean, of course you know all this, but V2 for female, G for guitar, and D for, is it dark, I think, which is like a ribbon mic. So I was using the V2 setting. Well, all the settings rubbed off within about a week, because you have to really like do it like this with your hands, and you kind of like, anyway, that rubbed off. And then the V2 setting just stopped working.
Oh no.
So yeah, I was a bit like, oh, it's annoying, because this is such a good deal. It's got the preamp built in and everything. I didn't have to buy a separate one. But
really
but to be honest with you, the guys at Aston were so great, and so like, it was a bad batch. We're really sorry. We'll send you this one out. So they've sent us this third one now. So you can hear me.
Well, I mean, even the people who get it wrong right all the time will get it wrong sometimes.
Totally. I actually,
just as a broken clock is right twice a day. You know what I mean?
That's right.
It happens, unfortunately. And when people mass manufacture things, these little things can go wrong. It's very possible. But
yeah, and I feel like the way they handled it was so good, and I'd still recommend it, because I think it's a gregreat mic.
The sound of it is just so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like it, and Graham likes it. For trumpet, he uses the ribbon mic setting, so it's really handy. We were trying to find something that I could use as a singer and he could use as a trumpet player, and so it's been great for us, because we just wanted like a simple setup, really. But now we're getting into it. We're getting like all you tech lot who are all like, well, just another plug-in and then just another thing, and so I can see how you can get sucked into it.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily I've steered clear of getting too much of that stuff. I feel like I've neglected this part of myself a little bit in the lockdown, but I think, as you said, doing the videos with everybody else, I think staying busy and staying creatively busy is a very important thing.
And you know what?
For your mental health.
Yeah, but also just like, if you're doing that and it's not because somebody's asked you to do something, I think that is so huge, to actually get off your bum and do something that, like, which is what you've done here. I think that is incredible, to actually be asked to go to the lengths of creating something from scratch is brilliant. For me, yes, I've been asked by different people to record some vocals on this for charity and coach this person for charity and and of course I'm up for it. But the thing I'm really, really proud of is the app, because I've done that from nothing, and I had nothing to compare it to as well. So it's just like, you just kind of have this idea in your head and you just kind of go with it. And it's believe me, it's taken a lot of different twists and turns to get to how it is now. It didn't look anything like it does now when it first got made. In fact, when it first got made, I was like, this is nothing like what I thought it was going to be. And it was really stressful. And then one of my best mates, Ed Royal, who made the app for me, he sat me down and was like, and it wasn't his fault, by the way. That first design was totally me, and I just hadn't communicated it. I didn't really know what I wanted, and I think that's so important when you're creating anything from scratch. You kind of have to decide, right, what is it I'm trying to say? What is it I want?
With any kind of new creation, you're going to have to go through a prototype stages. It's just, there's nothing you can do. I mean, like, I designed a tablet holder for engineers.
Great.
And yeah, I mean, I got it patented a while ago, and it's in the final stages of development, but it's been as well 3 years that I've been going through this process. And from the first prototype that I made, by cutting up all iPad holders and making straps, and the thing was huge. But then, then I took it to a developer and I said, listen, this is the idea, what I want, but I want it slimmer. I want it to look like this. I want it to incorporate all these sorts of functions.
Yeah.
And, you're going to have to go through prototype stages, and you're going to have to, I think the chances of you getting something right, out the blocks is a rarity.
I think that's right.
But, all this work that you put into it, it just increases the love that you have for the result.
It really, really does, and you're so right. And I think that's something that, having never made like an album or anything like this, I've really learnt that lesson, and actually props to anybody who does anything like this, because It really is. The payoff at the end, like the feeling now of having this app in my hand and being able to go, it's unbelievable. And already I'm like, I've got phase 2. I've got a long list for phase 2 already. I'm going to add a load more exercises to it. There's going to be a load more features on it. And it just, but oh yeah, by all means, it has been such a long road to get here. And I've made so many mistakes that I just don't regret at all, because otherwise it wouldn't have ended up the way it has now. But it's kind of being okay with yourself in that process and allowing yourself to make those mistakes and go, oh my God, I got it wrong or whatever. Like looking back now, it's fine. At the time, it feels like the end of the world. And, you know, I'm putting all my money into this. You know, it's a big gamble. And then you kind of have something and you're like, no, it's not right. And it's like, that's okay. That's okay. You just change it. You just have to have the right kind of like approach to it. If it's not right, change it.
Yeah, I think it's also something that I've been kind of going on and on about here is about persistence and about resilience, you know, even in the face of adversity, whatever it is, like for you, your app, which you've developed over years, but also, I mean, your career as a singer. I'm sure you didn't just come out the blocks and you were, you know, the Annabel Williams that I know today, who's vocal coaching for, you know, is The Voice. Are you still doing that?
No, I'm not doing The Voice, Ian. I do X Factor. No.
I'm so sorry. Please forgive me.
No. Do you know what everyone thinks? Because everyone just groups those programs into the same bunch. Now I understand
maybe it's
why
just
they
because
do.
you're The Voice.
So what's that?
Maybe it's just because you are The Voice.
You
see?
Yeah, so I'm X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, head vocal coach on X Factor and Britain's Got Talent. Oh God, yeah. I mean, going back, yeah. I mean, quite often I do a lot.
Can we go back a little bit?
Shall we go back
to where Annabel Williams started her career in singing, or in music, for that matter?
Absolutely. I mean, the very, very first thing I did was, bearing in mind, all through my early teens, I was literally the shyest person in the entire world. And hard to believe, as I'm sure, but I literally went bright purple anytime anyone talked to me or singled me out. I was that sort of person. Loved singing, but at the time I definitely didn't have the confidence, and I wanted to be either something to do with like voices, like a linguist or something, or an author, or write fiction. I didn't really know, like something along those lines. But I knew I loved singing. My mum was a singer and my dad was a trumpet player. Weird. I'm a singer and Graham's a trumpet player. And so the very first thing I do, I was forced to sing in my school play when I was 16, and I accidentally sort of got roped into auditioning for my best friend, and next thing I knew I was a lead part, and that was sort of, my life changed overnight, because I went from being this shy little wallflower to like everybody in school was like, I was suddenly popular, like overnight. It was so bizarre from that week of doing this school play, and it was Little Shop of Horrors, and I played Audrey.
Awesome.
So I had a squeaky voice like this, and I had to sing Seymour, and I had to sing all these lead songs on my own, and I really feel like that was my turning point, because suddenly I had like all the music teachers going, well, where did this come from? You know, we didn't know you could sing, and we, you know, put me up for jazz bands and things like that, and that's how I ended up going to the National Youth Jazz Orchestra. Yeah. My teacher from school took me there, and that's how I met Tim. And I mean, in those days, every single jazz musician going, like 90%, I would say, went through NIJO. And NIJO is such a fantastic establishment and training ground. Sorry, I'm wobbling my computer there.
That's okay.
Training ground for singers and musicians, and it really was the biggest roast of life for me. You know, I turned up when I was 15 and I left when I was 23. I got the chair when I was 17 and was doing Ronnie's at age sort of 17 and a half, totally thrown in the deep end. And you know, my first night at Ronnie's was just incredible, because it was in the days when it was, before it was all, I mean, it's been transformed a lot over the years, but you had the tiny stage, and then you had this really tiny little kind of sticky out bit at the front, which was for the singer.
For vocals,
And so the stage, little sticky out sort of square that you stood on.
Extension,
And, you know, the red and white checked tablecloths, everyone was smoking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because I know that all my favourite jazz singers from the last 50 years or whatever have sung in this little sticky outy bit. And it was just so amazing. But like anything, I was thrown in the deep end. I was crapping myself, but I did it. And so that's how that all came about, really. So I would say I owe, just in terms of throwing me in the deep end and giving me the confidence that I could do it, National Youth Jazz Orchestra really did that for me. And then, of course, from there on, you just meet people and there your career takes off.
Yeah. No, that's. Did you? So this play was basically. Did you have any formal music education? Or I suppose you might have gotten a lot of education at home from mum and dad.
I'd had singing lessons from the age of 11 and piano lessons. Okay. So I think I'd done something like, I'd just been kind of like plodding away quietly with those. And, in those days there was no kind of like pop, rock, jazz coaches or courses.
It was classical, probably.
So it was all classical. I was classically trained and classical piano as well. And I was doing all my grades, and I think I was doing around the time of that play, I was on my grade 8 singing and grade 7 piano, I think, something like that. So to sing songs from Little Shop of Horrors, alarm goes off at 7, and it's all like this, and I'm like, oh my God,
what's this jazz
stuff?
This
is the best thing I've ever heard in my life. So I was able to sing stuff like this, and I was just like, this is what I want to do.
Wow.
It was amazing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So then, finish school. Did you go to college to study further?
Yeah, so I went to a college called Vocal Tech, which is now BIM.
Yes.
So, funnily enough, Vocal Tech was part of a few disciplines.
Conglomerate, yeah. There was guitar tech and bass tech and
drum tech.
I don't know if they had a tech, but
What's that?
I don't think they had a tech, but
they didn't have a tech. That would have been a good school. Well, we were saying we should have trumpet tech for Graham at the time. That would have been great, or horn tech.
Horn tech, yeah.
But yeah, I went there for a couple of years, and to be honest with you, they hadn't done the course for singers before, so Vocal Tech was brand new, and we were the first year of singers to do this course. So they'd done it for keyboards and bass and drums, and they were expanding into singers. So
that's where you met guys like Costa Magdalenos and Hugh Neal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hugh Neal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some of the people I met there are friends for life, and we all keep in touch. And that was led by Francis Serial, good old Francis, who started that school, and it was such a wonderful, wonderful community. And I actually went there as a student and ended up teaching there.
Yeah.
A few years later. But I went there when I was about 17, moved to London. And I did a couple of years there, and then I kind of just got really busy as a singer, and went on the road. My first sort of proper touring gig, I guess, would be Alison Moyet,
awesome.
who I owe so much to, because I learnt so much on the road. That was all booked by Bob Knight, who is a very well-known drummer and fixer, and he kind of like took me under his wing. He was a really, really influential person for me. Because he believed in me, and I still had lots of confidence issues because of how I looked and things like this, and thought you had to look a certain way as a singer. And Bob kind of didn't see that at all, and just put me up for everything because he believed in me as a singer. And so he kind of got me on that road, really, of the pop world and touring and stuff like that. And yeah, that was, and we've spent many, many years touring, us two. And so, I think I did the Moyet for a few years, and I learned so much on that. And like with anything, you meet people and then you get other jobs and then it snowballs and stuff. So, so I left Vocal Tech, but that's now BIM, and it's a great place, and they have one in Brighton as well. So I have a lot.
BIM used to be Brighton Institute of Modern Music, and then when they acquired Guitar Tech, Tech Music Schools.
Yeah.
And something else. I think Tech Music School split when the merger happened between ACM and BIM. BIM is now British and Irish Modern Music Institute. So they've got 7 campuses. I think they have one in Germany as well.
Right. Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's great they have these schools, because I have a lot of students that come to me from sort of like early teens, and then they're ready to leave school and go to college, and it's like, right, I want to be a songwriter, I want to be a singer, but I want to be a pop singer, or I want to be, a soul singer or a jazz singer. What do I do? And it's like, well, the places like that are great, because there just wasn't things like that when I was growing up. And that's why, we were the absolute guinea pigs of that whole setup, being the first year of singers. So it's really great.
Well, no, it is a good thing. It's a good place, even just in terms of building a social network, or a professional network, if you will, of your peers, and also, you get to experience a lot of industry professionals. Like, they have master classes all the time and have things like that, and it's a really good thing because you can be as good as you want as a musician or as a singer or as whatever, but if you do it just you by yourself in your bedroom, you're never really going to progress. I think the best way for us to progress is to play with others, because was it I think, was it Miles Davis that said that make sure that you're always the worst person in the band? I think it was it him or was it somebody else? But in terms of pulling yourself up,
absolutely.
Because if you play with people who are on the same level or inferior to yourself, you can be the teacher for them, but you yourself aren't going to progress. You're not going to discover new things and I never thought of that or saw it in that way.
That's how you learn, for sure.
And also being thrown in the deep end.
What's that?
The best way. Being thrown in the deep end is the absolute best way.
100%. Especially for people like me that didn't have the confidence. 100% being thrown in the deep end is the best thing. And horrific as it is at the time, you look back and go, oh my God, thank God I did it. And I think having things like masterclasses, I think they're so brilliant when you've got somebody in the industry, because for me now, I wish I had, I did actually, I had various masterclasses from people, but when I go to music colleges now, I remember how those kids are feeling. I know exactly how a lot of them are sat there feeling, and they haven't got the 20 years experience that I've got, and I can pass that on to them. But at the time I didn't have it. And I think, there's so much more you learn I've learned over the last 20 years. And so much of what you think is important at the time isn't important. And the stuff that isn't important then is important now. So I think having things like masterclasses are super helpful. Hearing from actual people in the industry, players, musicians, about their own experiences and about how they got where they are so brilliant. And like you say, to be around people, if you can find yourself in bands that push you, like for me, Niger, what a roast. I didn't want to be the weakest link, so I was the only singer that went in those days. I actually ended up setting up a weekly sort of singers workshop. That's kind of how I suppose I fell into the coaching, actually, which I'll probably come back to, but I would set up this weekly workshop for singers, but before that I would sit at the piano. There was this pad this thick, all originals. There was not one song I knew in there. It was all originals. People used to get commissioned to write for Nijo. And you just have top lines, and then they'd be in the other room rehearsing, 23 musicians in a massive square. This is how scary it was. 5 trumpets, 5 trombones, 5 saxes, rhythm section, and then you go stand in the middle and sing your little song. And you literally have to just this is why luckily I'd had the singing lessons the years before. For the sight reading. I could sight read. So I was just but still, come on, 15, 16, I was absolutely shitting myself. Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah, you can say fuck shit whatever you want.
No, I really was shitting myself because and everyone was so scary, and people I'd heard of. I'm looking around me and there's Andy Greenwood and Craig Wild on trumpet and Darren Williams on drums and all these people that I was oh my God, amazing players, and I was just so intimidated by all of them. And and friends for life, as I say, a couple of years in of sitting and learning these pads, learning these songs from the pad every week. I was off, and the next thing we were touring in Cyprus and playing Ronnie's. Fantastic. So, and that was being thrown in the deep end. It's definitely a good thing. I think it's it's a test
for oneself, and then when you succeed, it's testament to you as who you are, and also, just gritting your teeth sometimes and just getting through it.
Yeah.
It doesn't always, especially, with these early experiences, it doesn't have to be perfect. But as long as you've got
and it wasn't, believe me, it wasn't.
As long as you've got
the
perseverance and the resilience, and if this thing bites, and it stokes a fire in you, as long as you keep just adding a bit of fuel to that fire, if it's something that's important to you, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, some things we get pushed into that we don't want to do, and then those things you do it, and you're like, I did that.
It's so true. It's so true, because I think you ask any student who is a singer or a student who is a musician at a college now, there's probably, I would say for nearly all of them, the option to give up. It's just not there, because if you have that in your belly and you want to do it, certainly for me and all my friends I was studying with, I mean, failing just wasn't an option.
That's it.
And also, so many of us went off to do different things. So some people are like session singers, some people ended up being songwriters and artists, and some people went into teaching, and it's just so amazing. Everybody ended up doing something they love, or other people just went off and had proper jobs but still had that like thing in their belly of singing, and maybe just sing at the weekends and function bands and things like that. Like, I think when you're a singer and you have that need to sing, it just doesn't go away, and actually if 100%. You kind of suppress it, it eats away at you. I've coached a lot of people.
It will. It'll make you depressed, and it'll make
100%.
you just a sour person, I think. If you don't give outlet to your creativity. I've been going on about the importance of having hobbies outside of your your main thing. Or even doing your main thing, but having like a section of it which is a hobby, where it's not work, it's just something for your own fulfillment.
Yeah.
And I think, if we can all sort of get a creative outlet, for our spare time, rather than just plonking in front of the TV and watching a series, and sometimes those things are important to just zone out, fair enough. But I think to be creative and to have outside hobbies is very important, because it's going to enrich your main purpose. You're going to take those elements and you're going to take experiences from all those, and it's going to just make your main focus better, and you're going to be more of a rounded person.
100%. And something you learn as you get older, you definitely think about more as you get older, is, I mean, you really are only here once. Like, sorry, at the risk of sounding all, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, at the risk of sounding like, what's the word? On tip of my tongue. Anyway, dramatic, basically.
Yeah.
You are only here once, and like, even now, I'm 40 this year, so I'm having that whole and in no way is it a midlife crisis, but I'm having that whole right, what do I still want to do? What haven't I done? And I've been super lucky in that I've done so much in my 39 and a bit years. But now I'm like, for me, it's all about looking forward. It's not about looking back. It's about what's next, what's around the corner.
Looking
I'm lucky enough to have gotten to this age, glass half full and all that. So it's really short life. So you have to just, that thing that you're always meant to do, that's what I'm all about. It's just going and doing it, and do it now and worry about the consequences later. You regret it if you don't.
100%. Yeah, because I think, the consequences of not doing it is going to
philosophical. Philosophical, that's the word. That's what I was trying to remember. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's definitely important to to chase your dream in some way. I think maybe something positive out of all this craziness is maybe people might have realized a little bit more how unimportant money is.
So true.
I mean, it's important to a degree, because we all got to eat and we got to pay our rent and stuff. But trying to do things that are, fulfilling, rather than just punching a time card.
Well, that's it. And whilst in this time, of course, the most important thing is getting your rent paid and making sure and I think in those first few weeks that was the real scary thing of like, God, is everyone going to be okay here, you know? But if you've got to a point where you know your rent or your mortgage is paid and you know you're going to eat, it's like actually, then it's about, and of course, so many people have had hardly any money coming in. Okay, well, how can we still like make the most out of life in this weather on no budget, you know? And just there's so much you can do for free or hardly any money. I mean, we've been like, even things just like walks by the river. We've been playing loads of board games and just like having the nicest time and just loads of, you know,
reconnecting.
Just hanging. Absolutely.
Reconnecting. I think one of the things that I've noticed.
Yeah,
one of the things I've noticed as well is now that people have time to connect with people, because when we're going, it's like go, and we're all just running, and it's, you know, you're like, oh fuck, it's been a year since I've spoken to you, you know, to somebody who's a good friend, or a year since we've seen each other. Maybe it's a text every now and then, but now people have kind of slowed down a little bit and they've realized how important these connections between each other are. Now that it's been ripped away from us, now we're like, oh my God, we actually need social interaction. We need to, you know, to connect with these people. And hopefully, you know, coming out of all this, people aren't just going to just fall straight back into how it was.
But I think that's something that I found really lovely, especially in the first few weeks, is that how we all came together as a community, particularly in the musician industry. You know, people were calling each other, "Are you okay? How are you doing?" I don't think I ever spoke on the phone so much. You know, everything's text on the move, and actually just like having phone calls, people were calling me to ask me how I was. People that I hadn't spoken to for, like you say, a year were popping into my head, and I was like, I've got to check on them. I was texting people to ask how they were more than I've ever done before, and it definitely made me think, oh yeah. And of course, because we just don't have time, of course we don't, with our busy lives, but it's been so nice to catch up with people. And you know, I've had lots and lots of friends have had babies in the past few weeks, and awful as it's been because they can't meet grandparents and things like this. You know, some really lovely things have been going on in the world at the same time as this awful pandemic. And, you know, being able to speak to friends and catch up and just sit and talk on the phone has been really nice. And of course, you know, FaceTime and Zoom and things like that. I mean, none of us have ever done video calls as much as we've done in the last two months. But what would we have done without it? It's definitely kept us all together.
Yeah, I was saying to my housemate the other day, can you imagine if this happened in 1992? What would we have done? There was no internet.
Crazy.
There were no, you know, there was no video calling applications. There was no nothing. You know, it would have been a different world. It would have been a whole different world.
And the lines, the home phone lines would have all crashed probably like they do on New Year's Eve.
My God, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, oh my God, I don't know what we would have done. Even
then, there's not the opportunity to see the other person because it's so important. I made some biltong the other day, and I took some to a friend of mine just before we started with this.
Made some biltong? Yes.
Oh yeah.
Woo!
I've been making biltong like all the time.
Great.
It's if you want some, I'll send you some.
Yes, please. Text me some.
Okay, I will. I'll text you some.
Fax me some over.
We were discussing about, you know, the sort of the possibility that somebody can misconstrue your intention behind something in a text message. Because you could be smiling and texting something, and because everybody's so sensitive at the moment, something can just completely flare out of proportion. Out of something that wasn't there. And then the next step up from that is to speak to somebody, you know, on the phone, which is a better thing than texting. Yeah. Because at least you can hear the tone of someone's voice. But I think video calling is, you know, it's the level where it's the best of a bad situation. Yeah. You know, where you can see the other person. You can see the facial expressions and things that would be said or misconstrued in a text message or even possibly on a phone call. Yeah. There's not that chance of it happening. So, you know, it's we're very fortunate, and also, you know, as we mentioned before, the weather has been so amazing. When was the last time the weather has been this good for this long?
Well, I think also because people are missing holidays. People are missing getting on a plane and going abroad. You know, I was supposed to be on this holiday of a lot. I mean, it's my 40th year. I'm going to be celebrating it the entire year. That's the plan. And I had this holiday booked with my friends in Vegas, LA, Toronto, you know, and all cancelled. It was all booked for March. It was all booked. Hotels were booked. And so I think because people aren't going on holiday, the fact that the weather is like this is just like a tiny little consolation because, you know, people want to get away and get a bit of sun. So it is amazing that we've all had this sun. And I'm so lucky and grateful that I've got a garden to be in, and because I know there's lots of people out there that don't, but you know, thank goodness for parks and things like that and balconies. Just any kind of outside space is just so good for your brain, and it's so good to get out there.
It's so important, you know. Vitamin D is I was listening to a podcast with Joe Rogan and Dr. Rhonda Patrick. She's brilliant. I listen to her podcast all the time as well. She's just a super smart woman, and they were discussing the importance, obviously, of your immunity and how good it is to keep your immune system strong, right, regardless, and the importance of vitamin C, vitamin D, and obviously they talked a little bit about saunas and, you know, heat shock proteins and cold shock proteins because they're equally important and they play different roles. So I mean, I've been having cold showers for a year now.
Wow.
And the change that I've seen personally for my, you know, not just my immune system, but mentally, you know, it's such a boost and such a good thing. And I mean, that's where the idea of the sauna came from, because I always used to, you know, I'd go to the gym, do a bit of a workout, then I'd go sit in the sauna for a bit, and then I'd go have an ice cold shower. Yeah. And just the combination of that really hot, where you get, you know, the heat shock proteins going and you're getting all the toxins out, and then you go into this ice cold shower, and then your body just reacts like, whoop, what's going on?
Oh, I mean,
and
you can't even breathe. You can't even breathe.
And it's, I mean, now it's easy. I tell you what, February was rather difficult. You know, the water is super cold, and you know, ice cream headaches when you wash your hair.
But you're going in cold, whereas opposed to now you're going in hot.
Yeah,
I love that feeling. I got into it because Natalie Williams, my best mate, you know, she's from Berlin, and her mum's Hungarian, and so she's been brought up on like spas and that whole treatment of the hot cold thing. And in some ways, it's almost not seen as like a luxury. It's, you know, when you think of spas, you think of shampoos or something like that. But it's just like the hot cold thing. And she like has forced me to sort of take on this. So whenever we go away to a little spa, you know, there's always like these cold plunge pools. And I mean, I was not that person. I was like, not in a million years, you're not catching me going in that. But I did it. And as soon as I went from the hot to the cold, jumped in this freezing cold plunge pool. And as soon as I came out, of course, you're like, and then I was like, I want to do it again. So you were in and out. And
I mean, your body's almost tingling and your brain's on fire, and you're like, man, this is like, amazing.
It's like euphoria. It's like a drug. You feel amazing, and but it is like addictive. And I remember there was a woman when I first did this, and she'd just done it, and she was like, it's addictive, just before I'd done it, and I was like, whatever. Came out, and I was like, I totally get it. So I love that hot cold thing now for sure. It's brilliant. It's really.
But
really
even
good for you.
know, either of the two on their own is also beneficial. But I think it's important to. I don't think honestly,
I can do the shower thing yet. I'm not ready for that.
For you know, especially since last week, Mental Health Week. I think.
Yeah, it was last week.
Right.
Yeah. Oh no, this is the end of it. I think this is the end of it.
Right. But yeah, the importance of that. You know, for things like anxiety, for depression, it is. You know, there's been studies done on it since the 80s. You know, where there was. I think it was an American doctor who took, because back then they still had, you know, asylums and things like that for, you know, mental, you know, people with mental issues. And he started treating the people who were clinically depressed, people with severe anxiety and stuff like that, which are, you know, sort of like minor cases if you compare them to schizophrenia and stuff like that. You know, depression is obviously, you know, it's a thing, it's a chemical imbalance, but there are therapies available to alleviate it. You can, in a way, without, you know, because I'm not for antidepressants and things like that. I'm sure that for some people it serves a purpose, but unfortunately with my, you know, I've got a history with these things and I'm not into it. That being said, with the cold showers, I cannot tell you the difference that it made for me personally, because, you know, when I started doing it, I'd been researching it for a while, And when it started last May, I was like, I was at the point where I really needed it, and the difference that it made to me personally is just, honestly, I've got more drive, and everything just looks a little bit better.
It's such a good tip, because I feel like in lockdown particularly, it's so easy to get into that funk. I think a lot of people are feeling it, especially the last few weeks. I definitely have. I think the first couple of weeks I was like, woo, and I was doing my workouts in the lounge and joining on the bandwagon, and I haven't done that in like a month. And, I think it's very easy to just sit on the sofa and just kind of, you very quickly nosedive.
Feel sorry for yourself.
Eh?
Feel sorry for yourself.
Feel very sorry for yourself. You can very quickly get that, go from here to here, and I think people that are prone to that, which is a lot of us, particularly in the music industry,
absolutely,
we're very up and down, and sometimes I'm just, all you need is a bit of sunshine and a walk, and that's the last thing I want to do when I feel like that, and I literally have to be dragged out. And sometimes Graham will be like, come on, let's go for a walk, and I'm like, but I'll do it, and as soon as I'm out there I go, oh, I feel instantly better. This is exactly what I needed. Isn't walking in the sun fun? Why don't we do this all the time? And he's like,
well, I mean, the reason I kind of got onto the podcast that I was listening to, because vitamin D, it turns out isn't just a vitamin, but it converts into a hormone in your body, and had the importance of that. And, it's to get these things, obviously, if you're darker skinned, you need to supplement more, because your skin is adapted to block out the sun a little bit more. But with that, with all the melanin, it's a thing. So people are vitamin D deficient, and that has been shown to be a huge thing, with the fighting off of viruses, even just the cold and the flu and stuff like that. So sunshine is so important.
It definitely gets your dolphins going, as I call them.
Your dolphins, that's brilliant. But I mean, with the cold showers, even just as soon as you step out of it, because going into it, I can guarantee you, it's not always fun. I have to drag myself in there a lot of the times, especially like I said, January, February was so hard to do that. But as soon as you're done and you're out, and your skin's like red from the cold, and it feels like a little victory immediately. You're like, there's one thing that I've done that was really shit and really hard to do, but I did it, and I got over it, and that sort of like mental boost from that little victory just goes on for the rest of the day. And you build on that.
It's like the biggest pat on the back, isn't it? Because you've done it and you've achieved something, and it's the first thing.
It's a small thing, but it gives you that. It's that ignition.
It's still really brave, though. It's still really brave, though. I don't know if I'm ready for that. The plunge pool thing I can just about do. I don't know if I'm ready for a cold shower.
Well, start now before the summer.
I need to lie out there for about 5 hours and cook and bake, and then maybe I'll do it.
Or maybe you can do that. Another good thing that you can do is have a warm bath.
Now that
nice warm bath.
I can get on board with that one. Yeah.
I yesterday, because we went to Hayling Island, which is close to Portsmouth yesterday, and it was a long hot day. And as soon as I came home, I went to a friend of mine's friend is a mechanic. I've got some car trouble, and he had a look at it. And I got back home like 10 p.m. I was just freaking knackered. The first thing I thought was like, I just want to have a nice warm bath.
Yeah.
Because initially I thought I'm going to skip the cold shower today. I was pussying out a little bit, and I had the warm bath, and I'm like, come on, let's do it. So drain the bath out, cold shower, there you go. And I just afterwards I was like, God,
I love a warm bath with magnesium salts and all the oils.
Right, now you're getting fancy.
Woo, candles, wine. Love a warm bath. I don't do it hardly ever, actually. I hardly ever have a warm bath because I'm just 200 miles an hour. But I've had, in this time I have. And when I get into my fitness, I always dip in and out of fitness and get really into it and then don't do it for ages. And then when I'm in it, obviously you're all achy. It's so lovely and helpful. And you sleep so well. So well. I think it's a really great shout that for anyone with anxiety or anyone who's kind of
100%
a bit, panicky or whatever. Or if you're not sleeping very well, insomnia, that sort of thing. you know, those
It helps with
magnesium salts in
inflammation.
your bowl, Epsom salts in your bath, just relaxes everything, and you have a great night's sleep.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, it's
Lovely.
it's something I think, you know, it you don't have to do it every day even, you know, you can start with once a week or so. I can't recommend it any higher. And, you know, just in terms of how it supports your immune system. In December, everybody in the house got bronchitis and it was pretty bad.
Oh, no.
And, I mean, I have to be quite wary about these things anyway because I don't have a spleen. So I was supposed to, you know, be immunocompromised.
Right.
Although historically I've been strong ever since, you know, I got better. My immune system's quite strong, even though it shouldn't be strong. You know, I survived the swine flu, which was supposed to kill me, and I superseded that with no problems. I was fucking working outside, doing a premiere in Leicester Square for like 5 days.
Yeah,
it was horrible, but I got through it. But
some people
so
are just strong constitutions, aren't they? I'm like that as well. Some people are just.
They all got bronchitis, and I'm like, oh shit, here it comes. I'm probably gonna get it, you know, because we're in the same space.
Well, yeah, if the whole house did, yeah.
And then January they got sick again with, in my opinion, could have been either an early form of the corona because it was all the symptoms, right? And I started feeling it, and I was like, "Ah, shit! I'm gonna get it. Hold on a second." I jumped in the cold shower, and I did an extra long cold shower. I did like 15 minutes, and the next day I was better immediately. You know,
really?
Just like, yeah, honestly, like, and every time I feel like I've got a bit of a sniffle going on or something, I mean, I do the cold showers anyway, but as soon as I feel like a little bit run down, I just like double the amount of time that I spend in there. I don't just go in there and wash myself like I usually do, because, you know, that's my day to day is, you know, just a proper wash, but only cold water. But as soon as I feel a little bit run down, I do my wash, and then I do like 5 to 7 minutes of just standing under the water. You know, I turn myself so all my body gets cooled down and everything. And I can tell you the benefits to my immune system is just, it's incredible. So you know, I cannot sing the praises high enough, you know, to do these things. It's and it's such a small thing that we can do to, you know, to get ourselves better.
Wow, yes, Tian, good for you. You're like the body, the body doctor, the natural body doctor, Tians.
Well, I mean, I can only speak from my experience. I'm not in any way qualified to speak to anybody else's needs or
no, but
whatever.
You know what works for you. I'm like that with
recommend-
ginger shots when I'm doing X Factor and everyone's getting the
ginger
flu and the
is so
cold, and
good
it's
for
just
you.
it's just getting passed round and round and round, back and forth. I'm like ginger shot, ginger shot, ginger shot, ginger shot.
Yeah, it's a natural antibiotic.
Absolutely, and it's great for us singers as well anyway, so I just like knock all those back. In fact, I get all the contestants on it, and just kind of like, it either keeps what you've got at bay, or it can like
just flush it out.
Flush it out, exactly.
Yeah. Garlic is the same.
I know. I love garlic. Just not in a smoothie.
I think that's probably the only thing I wouldn't have garlic in.
Yes.
I used to love going to garlic and shots, man. I used to get my garlic there. But I mean, I cook with garlic all the time.
Yeah, I do every day, yeah.
It's so good. But raw garlic, if, you know, whenever you feel you've got a flu or something like that, you know, what I'll do if, you know, for a cold or something like that, you take a clove of garlic, cut it into, I don't know, like 4 or 8 pieces, just small enough so you can swallow them like a pill, basically. Because if you can swallow a whole clove of garlic, it's even better. For those who are worried about their breath, I mean, I don't worry about garlic breath. You know, it's not something that puts me off. If somebody talks to me and they've got garlic breath, that's for me is like, hey. But
fellow garlic lover.
You know, for people who are concerned with this, you know, there are 2 ways. You can eat parsley, helps eliminate the smell, and also if you cut it
and
instead
peppermint,
of like
if you have
chopping
like peppermint
it up,
oil capsules or anything like that, that helps. I've got a good story about parsley. I was on holiday in the Caribbean. No, I wasn't on holiday. Actually, I was working in the Caribbean. Where was I? St. Martin. For this family, I was coaching these lads, and best job ever, by the way. And they had a woman staying with them who had diabetes. I couldn't tell you which one. The one that's not hereditary. So is that the type 2?
Type 2.
Yeah. Well, so this is a friend of the family, had the diabetes. She was staying with this family, and the mum of the family was really into her natural herbal
remedies.
Medicine and alternative medicine, and she made her friend drink parsley tea 3 times a day while she was there. And after 2 weeks, she'd stopped taking all her diabetes medicine.
Fantastic.
How bonkers is that?
It's fantastic. I mean, it's in the plants around us. You know.
And another thing I found about when I was there was, and this is in a different part of the Caribbean, when I was on my honeymoon, and I remember trying to find a shop for paracetamol, because as you can imagine, there was a lot of drink consumed and I needed a lot of paracetamol. Anyway, for headaches and things. But they were like, we don't have paracetamol here. We just go and pick the Panadol plant and drink and make it into a tea and drink it.
Perfect.
And that's literally what they did. They picked the Panadol plant, hot water, and that's how their headaches go. And it's, I just was like, we're just not told about that stuff here. And I was just like, oh my God, this is incredible. Especially that parsley story, because one of my best friends has diabetes, and I came back and told her, go and buy all the parsley. And she was like, well, I like parsley, so I'll try it. Tried it, and her blood sugar levels were absolutely fine whenever she drank it.
Amazing.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I love, like, even, you know, when you go to sort of Arabic restaurants or, you know, Middle Eastern restaurants, they do the parsley salad, which is basically just a ton of parsley chopped up with like tomatoes and cucumbers. Oh my God. Yeah, it's just so good, so refreshing, and you can just feel the iron in the plants, and it's just such a good natural boost. It's I think
fantastic. That's it. That like when you're
all in the plants around
when you're
us.
eating well like that, it does make you feel really good. And then it's not till you have like a couple of really sloppy days where you're maybe hungover, or you have like a Domino's or whatever, and then you're like, oh, I feel rubbish. Why do I feel so shit? Oh yeah.
It's a self-perpetuating thing, because once you're in that slump and you're like, then you want the comfort food, and you know, there's the problem with that. There's so much sugar in that. I mean,
it's a battle. It's a constant battle.
My daughter Savannah, she I wouldn't say she's maybe gluten intolerant, maybe to a degree, but I mean, she gets these little spots on her arm and on her cheeks when we give her store-bought bread. And obviously, the first thing that you're going to think is, oh, maybe this is gluten. That's the problem. Maybe she's got an intolerance. But at the sort of the second week of the lockdown, our neighbor, he texted me. He's like, "Hey man, do you want some sourdough starter?" So I got into sourdough bread. I bake about 2 big sourdough loaves a week, and ever since, I mean, even myself, I'm eating more bread now, because I was getting off the bread as much as I can, because I'm just just trying to shed this last few inches around
sourdough's the one.
waist.
I'm advised to eat sourdough bread as well for the low sugar, because I have something called PCOS, which is really, really common. It's for polycystic ovarian syndrome, and 1 in 7 women have it. And unfortunately, in a nutshell, your body doesn't burn sugar, so that's one of it, because it's a hormone imbalance. And so you're advised to do a low glycemic, a low GI diet, and which means that you're advised to eat sourdough, which I think when I first got diagnosed,
I'll send you the recipe that I'm using, because I mean, you go obviously with everything that you learn, all new crafts that you learn. You go through a learning period, and you try this one out, try that one out, and I went through a few recipes with which I had some success, but the recipe that I've been using for probably about 3 or 4 weeks now is so simple. It's got the least amount of work. There's no kneading of the dough.
But I feel like sourdough is really hard, is it not?
Oh, absolutely not. It's so soft and it's just beautiful. I mean, obviously the crust is it's going to be hard. After a few days, it'll moisten up, because especially with the recipe that I'm using, it's like, I think 86% moisture, because you get different moisture levels of the dough, and the higher moisture level you have, the more difficult it is to work the dough, because it's this sloppy thing. But this is like, you hardly work with the dough at all. You mix it in, you let it stand, it leavens up, then you do a fold over, you leave it standing, then you do a big fold, leave it standing, and then you round it off and you put it in the pan, and then you bake it. I mean,
Amazing.
the amount of work, the amount of actual physical work that you put into it is probably maybe 12 minutes. And I mean, that's from starting the dough to, checking on the bread and then taking it out.
Send me
I mean, it
send me
takes
the
a long
recipe.
time.
I'd love to try it.
It's a YouTube video. I'll send it to you. It's so easy, and it makes the most delicious bread. So definitely, try and get into that. It's everything. The good thing about this lockup is baking things and making things and seeing where the things that you'd never have time for. And seeing that actually you do have time for these things. Because like I said, even with the sourdough bread, it takes about 8 hours, the whole process. But the amount of work that you put into it is maybe 15 minutes at most. So you make it, then you leave it, then someone like yourself who does teaching, who does other things, it's so easy. You get up in the morning, you start making it, then you've got 2 hours to kill where you can make videos and you can do this and you can do that. And it's not precious. It's not going to be like, a minute either way, it's going to, get ruined. You've got a good window of where, you can make this thing happen successfully. And you bake it, and you bake a nice big loaf. You've got bread for a week.
Right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this. Because I've had a couple of failed attempts of bread during lockdown, and I just thought, and people going online
demoralizing,
people going online going, God, it's so easy to make bread. I had no idea, and I'm like, I'm going to do this too, and I try it, and it's just like, it's not really worked.
It's disheartening, isn't it?
Yeah.
But perseverance, Annie, perseverance.
I got this.
It's the only way we're going to do this.
I'm definitely going to do it.
Can we move back to so Nigel at Ronnie's, then you went out with Moye, with Bob Knight, and then after that, where did you go? How did you?
Well, the thing is, all through my 20s, I was working as a professional singer, session singer, backing singer, singing at Ronnie's, that sort of thing.
The dark blues you did.
The dark blues, yeah. Whilst all the while, alongside it, I was coaching, but the coaching was always there with me, and I started coaching when I was 19. And to be honest with you, I think when you're a sort of 20, 21-year-old singer like I was then, the coaching was like just a bit of a way of making extra money, but it's something I didn't realize. I only realized looking back now that I was good at it, and I always used to say at the time, I'm not a vocal coach, just so you know. I'm not a vocal coach. I'm a singer.
It's almost like it's a step down, right? It's funny.
Yeah.
There's that saying of those who can do, those who can't teach. And I think it's the biggest rubbish in the world.
Well,
because you need to know your craft so well to be able to teach it.
That's it. And I think what makes a great vocal coach is being the thing that you're coaching. So, and being able to demonstrate. So I've got to say, when I was growing up, my classical teachers, I had quite a few different teachers, and most of them didn't demonstrate to me. And I feel really, really passionate about the fact that I've got to be able to show you what I'm trying to teach you to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't have a right to teach it,
Exactly.
And it's so it's something that always kind of like followed me. And as when I was about 25, 26, I basically I started teaching at BIM, and I absolutely loved it. Well, what was Vocal Tech at the time?
Yeah.
And it was honestly some of the best years of my life. We had such fun. I really, really enjoyed teaching. And I had a bit of a reputation for being like super honest. And, I remember when I first started, and I learned so much teaching at that school because, you do have to have a certain skill as a vocal coach and as a singing teacher. And that skill involves having patience. It involves how you communicate to that person. And it involves, it's very, very much about demonstrating and how you communicate. Those are the sort of key things, I would say. And I really loved it. But it's definitely something you have to practice at to get better, and you learn. And I was always very, very open. And in those days, I would say, I'm really not a vocal coach, but I kept getting booked for people, if you vocal coach someone, they tell their friend, and then their friend wants vocal coaching. And it just sort of snowballed totally by accident. You know, all the while I'm like chugging along with my singing career and pushing that, whilst all the while this vocal coach thing is just snowballing. I'm like, well, I love it. I actually love both. I really, really do. And if I just sing, I really miss the vocal coaching side. And like anything, it's important to keep it going. Otherwise, you lose confidence with it. But equally, while I'm vocal coaching, I think it's really important that I'm out there practicing what I'm preaching and doing that still for a living. So I've always done the two. Because I need to experience what it's like as a singer in order to be able to teach that and pass on the knowledge. And that's really all I do, is I've passed on, because I've been working professionally for now nearly 25 years, did my first gig at 15. It's experience, and it's stuff that you've learnt, and it's stuff that I've been through as a singer, which is what I'm passing on. And I suppose, yes, now I am a vocal coach, but I didn't go to vocal coaching school. You know, it's just something that you learn. And then, so when I got to about age 28, I remember watching X Factor and thinking, that's what I need to be doing. That's my gig. I need to do that. Put it in the universe. Put it in the stratosphere. You know, how do I get that gig? Because I'd love it, and I know I'd be good at it. You know, when you just think, I know I'd be good at that. And but by this point, wow, I'm 28, and I have got a bit more confidence about my abilities. And I actually started coaching this. By this point, I was coaching for a lot of labels, and I was coaching for Warner's and Polydor and BMI and Sony, and I was coaching this girl band, Stushy, who were signed to Warner Music, and their manager, Jo Perry, who I just adore and owe everything to, because she basically got me the gig on it, well, put me forward for it, gave my number to the guy that booked me for it, you know. And I'd said to her, Jo, you know, because she basically started working on X Factor, and as I think she was A&R on it or something, and helping them out, and said, Jo, you've got to get me in there. And 2 years later, after, when I was 30, I got the call from the almighty Simon Gavin, head of music on the show. Well, we need a vocal coach this weekend. Can you come and coach us? And it was the boot camp in Liverpool on the 2012 show.
Okay.
And the first person that, and I did, of course, I'm like, yep. So I was booked for the weekend. The first person that walks in is James Arthur with his Deirdre Barlow glasses. And bearing in mind, I've been vocal coaching for 10 years, but I certainly haven't been vocal coaching on TV. I've got a boom mic, camera, lights, all around me. They're like, you've got 20 minutes with this contestant, go. And in he walks, bless him, with his guitar. I mean, I still coach James now. I love him dearly. Wow. But he wasn't really, shall we say, open to a vocal coach in those days. And and you had to kind of like bear in mind this was someone's big audition day. So if they're not really like asking you for a lot of help, cut them a bit of slack and let them just, you know, just help them where they want help kind of thing. Yeah, let them get on with it sort of thing. And the rest is history, really. That I got, and from that I got Britain's Got Talent, and I've been doing it now for since 2012, so 8 years. Fantastic. And I'm still doing it, and it's honestly the best job in the world, and I really love it. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And anybody who works on any of those shows will agree that when you're in it, especially those days leading up to the final, it is absolutely manic mayhem. Everybody's working, you know, 14, 15, 16-hour days. It's just intense with no sleep. But boy, do you have a hell of a party after that final. And it's just so rewarding. And you've got your winner, and you've made some friends for life. And it is honestly the best job in the world. I'm so lucky to have it, and I meet such fantastic people doing it. So yeah, I guess the vocal coaching kind of totally overtook the singing in a way, but I still do the singing. I still do a lot of session singing and backing vocals and backing vocal arrangements for various artists, and I combine the two a lot of the time. So that's
fantastic. And now you've got your app coming out.
Now I've got my app coming out.
Looking forward to having a look at that.
Thank you.
I think it's it's just, it feels good, you know, when when you hear about people's successes.
Yeah.
And,
well,
really
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I really like to hear stories like that, and I think it's encouraging for the people. And I used to hear stories like that when I was a teenager. And you know, the fact is, you can do anything you put your mind to it. There's room for everybody. It doesn't have to be, you know, competition. It's not a competition.
Find your angle. Find your hole.
There's a place for everybody. And what's you know. what you have to remember, and what I didn't feel about myself at the time, is that, you know, you are unique, and what makes you unique is you. And it sounds like a bit of a cliche, but it's true. And so the best thing about myself is the fact that I'm myself, and that's really, really important. And I did spend a lot of the time in my youth not feeling good enough and thinking I had to change myself. And actually, you look back now, and it's like, oh, I wish I could just grab myself and shake myself and say no.
I've wasted time.
It's a waste of time, and that's why I feel really strongly about the fact that, like I said, there is a place for everybody. It's not a competition. You just go and do whatever it is the hell you want to do. As long as you're not hurting anybody, then crack on.
Yeah, 100%. And it brings authenticity to the table. And I think, you know, people can, you know, if I can get almost like spiritual with it, people can feel the authenticity. It's like an aura, if you will. You know, you get vibes from people, but you can also get vibes from anything that was made by people.
Yeah.
You know, if you can feel whether this thing is just another thing that was churned out, you know, just another thing, or if there's real actual people power behind it, and if there's authenticity, it just grabs you a little bit more, and you know, you feel better using it. It's almost like, you know, you're propagating some positivity back out there. And I think so, and I think that was my, you know, in the beginning where I thought, oh, I'm not a vocal coach. I think that transition from that to, because I thought a vocal coach was a certain type of person who spoke in a certain type of way. And I wasn't that person. And in actual fact, I am my own version of a vocal coach and a singing teacher, and that's okay. And the stuff that I don't know, and the stuff that I do know, and that's also okay. Yeah, I think that's probably why you've got, you know, apart from being amazingly talented, is, you know, the authenticity that you know, that you bring to it. And I think that maybe the idea of a vocal coach, what you had, is people who do classical training, or, you know, I mean,
they all use long words, you know, they all use long words, and confused me a lot. And that's something that I thought I don't want to be. It doesn't have to be explained in a complicated way. You know, at the end of the day, singers just want to get better, and singing is the most wonderful outlet to have. You know, we're not learning to be a neurologist here. No one dies if we make a wrong move. It's supposed to be enjoyable, and it's supposed to be wonderful, and it's a wonderful outlet to have. So why make it this complicated thing? And, you know, you can make it as complicated as it is, but ultimately it's a wonderful outlet of enjoyment. So
and it should be, really. You know, your creativity, and you're using your talent to bring joy to others, and in that you get the joy from that yourself. I mean, the the two-way between musicians and the audience is, you know, it's so essential. You know, and that was notable when the day before lockdown started. We did a live stream for the Ashley Henry Trio at Ronnie's. And although on the day, I think 87,000 people watched the stream.
Wow.
But it was to an empty club. And it was such a surreal experience. And I think especially for the